rise in anxiety among young people, but what about the impact on parents?
New figures show that 1 in 5 feel their mental health has suffered because of the anxiety their child is experiencing. According to child therapist Saskia Joss, it can lead to the household getting stuck in a cycle of stress.
It's all in her new book, Help My Child's Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety, and Saskia is here to tell us all about it. Hi, good morning to you. Lovely to see you.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you very much. It's a big book.
It is.
It is. But you know what? It's a needed book too. I've got quite a few cases that I've heard of that actually kids aren't going to school because they're worried or they're anxious, and it seems to have been a direct response to the pandemic, and then that's impacting the parents too.
Absolutely. So obviously anxiety existed before the pandemic. There were anxious children with good reason. Their parents were going through divorces, they were struggling at school. There were lots of reasons why kids have always been anxious, but things did change after the pandemic, and that's because anxiety is a response to a feeling of threat, a feeling that you're not safe. And all humans have it. It's to keep us protected from death. It's to keep us protected from the horrible things in the world. And it's meant to make you feel uneasy and make you check your surroundings and make sure that you're doing enough to keep yourself alive. And the pandemic meant that every person was trying to keep themselves alive, and every person felt closer to death and closer to threat than they had ever felt before. And so we see this runoff and a change in the brain in families and adults and children, because they lived in anxious times, and we lived in anxious times for more than 2.5 years. Things did not feel the same. You didn't live the same way for 2.5 years, which means we've all been rewired to feel threat more imminently. And we now sort of carry around a little bag of anxiety with us when we walk around because of the pandemic. What's that noise? What's that thing? What's that? Should we be worried about this? The world is much more anxious making, I would say, than it's ever been for all of us. And then we have this situation where we've got these little children living in anxious times still now, our big children living in anxious times still now, and we're trying to find ways to help them feel calm and supported, but lots of parents just don't know where to start.
Your lovely mum Vanessa, who we know and love on the show here, she actually came up with the name for the book, is that right?
That's absolutely right. So I was doing a lecture at a school for parents about anxiety and how parents could manage it, and a very lovely lady came up to me in the crowd. She said, "Can I take you for a coffee? I'd like you to write a book about anxiety. Should I give you a week to make a presentation?" I took it home, I talked to my mum, she said, "What if you just called it Help My Child's Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety?" Because that's exactly how everybody feels. They feel like they don't know what to do, they feel shocked and surprised, they want to support their kids. This feeling of overwhelm is there for both parents and children. What if you just said it like it is and just chose a title that meant people would really know what the point of the book was?
It is really, really clear, which is lovely. Saskia, we'll have mums and dads watching at home and grandparents thinking, right, we'd love some practical advice on how to manage some of our children's anxiety. So if we go through a few things, perhaps you could help. So, I mean, something that everybody will have been facing at certain ages. I've just been through A-levels and GCSEs and highs and exam stress, exam anxiety.
Exam stress obviously is anxious making because we put a lot of pressure on our children to achieve. They feel the pressure to achieve. If they're very clever, they know they've got to do well. If find school much more challenging, they're going to feel the pressure that they're not going to do as well as other children, and that will make them feel worried in advance. We need to show our children that exams do not define us as people. And there are now so many more jobs that exist right today that don't need exams, where you can be incredibly successful, you can be ahead of the curve, and you don't have to have every exam in the book to be able to be successful now. And we can explain to our children, exams don't show me who you are as a person. They don't show me how kind you are to your siblings. They don't show me how good you are at cooking. They don't show me how bendy you are in your gymnastics classes. And they don't give me a full picture. Yes, it's going to be you sitting down in one day, and I want you to regurgitate as much as you can and do as well as you can, but it doesn't tell people who you are, and we know who you are. We want to support you. There's a problem after the exam, we'll help you retake, we'll help you manage, we'll find a new university place for you, we'll be the support network that you need afterwards, but we just want you to give it a good go because we know who you are really.
What about if you've got a child who's socially anxious, like going to parties or going out to events or anything like that? What would you do?
So social anxiety is common at every single age and for different reasons. So the reason social anxiety is so pervasive for children and for adults is because we're hardwired to believe that loneliness and being alone is dangerous. Because it was. In prehistoric era's gone. If you were left alone, if you were left alone in the forest, it was all over for you. There was no one to watch you while you slept. There was no one to help you find food. We know in ourselves that being in packs is safer. It gives us a diversity of experience, different things to eat, different things to do. And when children have this feeling that they're about to be ostracized or they don't know how to break into a pack of friends, they can feel incredibly anxious, and they're right to, because they've sensed the threat of being alone, which would be much less safe and nice than being in a team. So we help children at different ages. With younger children, we help them practice the social skills they need Talk to them on the way to school. Who would you like to play with at break time? What do you think you'd like to do with them? And what if they say no? What would you do next? How would you manage the process? Give children the ideas first. There are some children who are so good at coming in with a great idea. I want to play a game of fairies. And some children that sort of have to hang back because they're not good at thinking on their feet. If they've done that thinking with you before on the way to school, they're ready. And they're also ready if they say no because they've had that opportunity to practice. Well, I would say to them, let's play on the swings first, which is what you want to do, and then you come and play with me in the sandpit afterwards. And they've got a plan for how they're going to manage that situation. Yeah. And we know that plans, structures, organisation and thinking helps children feel less unsafe. We're trying to work out what is the feeling that's bringing this lack of safety which makes children feel anxious and how to make them feel safer.
Yeah.
We've been talking the last few weeks about the uptake and the rise in divorce rates as well, of course, and that's something unquestionably anybody in that scenario will want to try and protect their children as best they can.
That's right.
Advice
so
for them.
My strong belief is that children can get through anything, and I really mean anything, even really the worst things, and that doesn't necessarily qualify for divorce because some divorces are easier than you expect, but I think that children can get through anything if their life feels as similar as possible afterwards. Everybody's kind to each other, and we help our children feel a feeling of safety whichever home they're in. And I think we also have to consider the idea that divorce is a bit like a bereavement. Yeah. They've just lost their family unit. They've lost this feeling of structure that they've always had. We don't have some accounts for kids who've been through bereavement, and we don't for divorce. We don't have the same structures for children who've been through divorce as we do for bereavement. So I would think if my child had been through a bereavement, how would I support them as they go through this divorce? So you don't have to feel like they've gone through bereavement. It's not the same thing, but the same kind of structures we put around a child who's experiencing bereavement, we should put around children experiencing divorce so that they can feel fully supported as we would with a child who's lost a huge amount of safety from an experience happening to them.
It's a really interesting lens to think about it through, isn't it?
Very. And so those are kind of aspects for children.
Yeah.
But what about in turn if you're the parent who's feeling the anxiety and feeding it off?
You can see why these parents are so anxious. You're only ever as happy as your least happy child. You've got this lovely small child or this big tall child that doesn't do the things they used to. They're cutting themselves off from life, and that does happen with anxiety. The more places you feel fear, the smaller you'll make your world to try and make yourself safer. I didn't like birthday parties because a balloon popped. Now I'm not going to after school clubs. Now I'm not going to grandma's house after school. So everything gets smaller for anxious children. And what we want to try and separate is, for these kids, is what was it that made you feel so anxious in the first place?
Yes.
So we don't just say no to everything. We work out what the specific problem was. And as parents, we can do that really easily. There's one really good question.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
This is my big question. What's the difference? What's the difference between last week's birthday party and this week's birthday party? What's the difference between year 2 and year 1? Yeah. What's the difference? Because our brains are very good at sorting things. That's one of our really good skills in our brain. And it's a non-judgmental, very easy to answer question that even very young children will be able to tell you, well, that party was loud and I didn't like the food. That after school club, it used to be my favourite teacher and now he's not there. They'll be able to tell you. And with older children, they'll be able to tell you what they didn't like about it because we're not trying to force them to feel a certain way, which teenagers often feel put upon by their parents. Why are you telling me that? I didn't want to do it, that sort of thing. If we ask, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between that kind of party or that kind of activity that you used to do and what you do now? We'll see where children have lost a feeling of safety, and we can put that back in without cancelling all events, all things, and sort of fit a very sensible plan around the fears that have just come up, rather than letting them make their world smaller and make everything much less manageable. And when we collude with them and say, yeah, you're right, we won't go to birthday parties, we're saying birthday parties are unsafe. You're right, all birthday parties are really unsafe. That's not true.
No, really, you've just got to listen.
You've got to listen, you've got to make sure you've heard what they said, and then put something in place that's really practical that shows you've taken them seriously, you understand the threat, and you want them to feel safe again. And then once they know, there's like a big film, a big boundary, a big fortress of safety, mostly made by parents and carers. They'll feel like they can get back into their real life again.
Very smart, so sensible, so sensible.
Practical advice. There you go. Help My Child's Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety by Saskia Joss there. Really interesting book. Thank you, Saskia. Lovely to see you. Give your mum a big hug from all of us.
Yes, please do. Big smooch.